Hello again, tribe. Welcome back to the main stage. Our final session for today. We have Jana and Tiffany from Sony Pictures Animations. Welcome to the stage. Welcome to TAJU Career Camp. Hello. The stage is yours. So start.
Hi everyone. It is so good to be back to with you at THU Trojan Horse. We are coming to you from the U.S. I actually am coming from Indiana, just near Indianapolis and Chicago, Illinois. And Tiffany is coming from
Colorado.
Yes. So I think, do you have some snow right now, Tiffany, or just had some?
There was just a couple days ago, so it's melting off now, but we expect more soon.
All right. And that's weather. So we are so happy that you guys are here with us today. We oftentimes get all kinds of questions about what do we look for in portfolios, how to do interviews, and all kinds of stuff like that. And so we thought we would just go through a real brief presentation and then open it up for some questions. So as you can see, we're Sony Pictures Animation, and I am head of recruiting for the studio, and Tiffany is our senior recruiter. I've been with the studio for almost 18 years, and Tiffany has been with us for a little over a year this time. She has also been worked with us at ImageWorks. Tiff, I'm going to let you tell a little bit about your background.
I started my career at Disney Animation, and I was the manager of artistic recruiting there, and I left, and I got to work at ImageWorks and Sony Interactive. And then when that kind of ended, I went to Blizzard Entertainment and worked in gaming for almost 5 years, and then Jana brought me back to Sony, so I am home again.
Lucky us. Lucky us. All right. Well, a little bit about Sony Pictures Animation. We have the front end of Sony Pictures Animation. Tiff, if you can scroll down, we had a little bit of some technical difficulties, so we're making this up as we go along here. The front end is pre-production, so it's the filmmakers, it's the ideas. We have story artists, visual development, editorial, production management. And then, Tiff, you want to talk about ImageWorks?
Yeah, ImageWorks does all the actual production that you see on the film. So animation, layout, modeling, rigging, surfacing, texture, all of that brings the whole film to your screen.
Great. So up to layout, and then it heads up to our sister studio up in Canada. We are located as a studio in Culver City, California. We are about 7 miles from the beach, just to give you a little bit of a perspective there. What do we look for in a story artist portfolio? The biggest thing is storytelling, and that actually is true with all of our positions. But with story artists, it's your job as a story artist to help us understand the characters, help us understand what's happening, really draw us in. So we look for clear direction and clarity, different points of view. Life isn't a one camera world. And so our films aren't one camera. So play around with your cameras a little bit as well. Timing is important, composition and staging, and acting. Our characters are our actors, and that needs to come through in your boards. Gestures, and it should be entertaining. We're a family-friendly company and studio, and the films that we produce go to a large, wide audience, and so we look for that as well. And I mentioned camera.
Next slide.
Yep. So we had a short story test to show you what we looked for from one of our apprentices, but as I mentioned, we had some technical difficulties, so we're moving on. Tiff, do you want to talk about visual development?
Sure. Visual development is a really interesting and broad category. It covers a lot of different things. So it covers character designers, painters, environment designers, and really what we're looking for is inspiration in these artists. Their drawings and their paintings really inspire ideas and direction for each of the films to take place in. And we also hire apprentices for this area.
Yes.
Do you want to add anything?
Nope, we're good to go. All right, so what do we look for in a visual development artist in the portfolios? Appeal is super important. You know, are the characters appealing and charming, and will they engage an audience? Excuse me. Storytelling, of course, is super important. When we see a character, whether you're a character designer or even an environment painter, each one of those pieces that you're creating should tell a story. And so, you know, we consider all of our artists as storytellers. Versatility, you know, can you work from, you know, Smurfs to Spider-Verse? You know, how much, you know, how much can you actually do? What's your range? Draftsmanship is super important. Originality, you know, we don't have a house style. Excuse me. And so we look for people who can bring us something new, something we haven't seen before. Each director gets to really choose how they want the film to look. And so we look for a lot of originality, you know, something that is going to be new and exciting and different. Somebody who can move the characters and understands from a 2D world to a 3D world. You know, we can have some really amazing character designs, but can we make them move? If they have a lot of, you know, cloth or hair or fur, how's that going to look on screen in a 3D world? Tiff, I'm going to let you take the last three here while I get
So design fundamentals and color theory. Color is super important, and it's really interesting to me how it comes in so early and carries through the entire film. So we want someone who understands the color story as well as the story of the film. And each film has its own design and color theory. You have to be collaborative. You have to be able to take some direction and, you know, really run with it. And the sky's the limit as far as what your designs can look like. Eventually, they will hone down into one design that fits for the film. But in the beginning, this is all about sky and the pie in the sky and inspiration. And you need to be technically proficient. We use a lot of different computers. We've got Cintiqs and a lot of different programs that we use. So we want to see that you can use those as well as have all those fundamentals in actual drawing. Jana, are you still with us?
I'm better. Thank you. It's really not great to be coughing in this sort of environment, but I promise you it's just talking a lot and allergies. So what do we mean by storytelling in visual development? What we're looking for are for people who can, you know, ask some certain questions and get those answers. What makes your character feel happy or sad? And can we see the expressions in their faces? A lot of times we see some very static poses, but life isn't static. So, you know, can we feel their emotion and their attitude? You know, are they sassy and, you know, really wild, or, you know, are they sad? What's happening there? Does your character move the story along? And that's super important. You know, is it just a character that's just going to be there? Or, you know, how is your character helping propel the story forward? Can you make up an internal monologue and then display that in the character? I've been talking in for some of our interviews, and that when we're actually able to go back out into the world again, you know, some of the best characters, you know, come from life. You know, so if you're in a coffee shop and I see Tiffany, and right now she's looking pretty casual, you know, she's maybe waiting for a friend. Or if she happens to be trying to hit a deadline, then her shoulders are going to change and her attitude is going to change and her head's down. Can you, what can you do to get that, that emotion and that internal monologue going on across in your characters? Does your character have weight, stretch, pull, and movement? I talked about that really briefly there. How do the shoulders look? Are they sitting on one hip? Maybe they have their foot underneath, where they, I oftentimes sit with one leg kind of tucked up underneath me. It's very rarely just in a T pose, so really feel what the character is up to and what they're doing.
And here's some examples.
Yes, this was from one of our interns. So just to give you an idea of something that that she drew, this is Brooklyn Walker, and she was an intern and then an apprentice with us. I love the pose in the chair, really fantastic. And again, so we do get a turnaround here, so we can see that she's capable of doing that, and she holds, the pose. But it's not just a straight on pose. The character Annie is back on one foot. And she's holding her teddy bear, a very sweet, sweet moment.
Uh-oh. There we go.
Okay.
Did I go too far?
Nope, go for it.
Hang on. So in environments for visual development, does your environment deliver on the emotional needs of the story? Do you have hotspots? Is it a dark and gloomy kind of atmosphere? Is it a room full of books and different things? What is your environment telling about this story? That's what we want to see. Put your character in your environment. It shows scale and it gives you that story moment. So if it's a dark and gloomy kind of atmosphere, is your character going to be really small and give the environment a really big presence? Or are we going to do a close-up in this dark and gloomy atmosphere of your character, seeing his maybe fear on his face? So again, that goes to playing with the color and the lighting of your environment, and that all tells the story. And who did this one, Anna or Jana?
Jay Secor, who was with us for a little while, and we hope to have return shortly. This was something he did in school. So really interesting lighting. You can see the reflection off the water. He's not a character person, so but he did put characters in there, so they're very tiny, and it helps us. Where are they headed? What's happening? With those three characters. It tells us a little bit of a moment. This is another piece. Again, one of the things that we have started doing more and more with our visual development team is they do some pretty rough models. So building a rough model and putting some mild textures and color to it, so that when it goes up to ImageWorks, they have an idea of what we're looking for. Okay, so we talked a lot about story moments, and I don't know if you recognize this scene, but it is from Spider-Verse. And if we could screen in here, which we can't, but if we could, you can see some, oh, there we go. There are some people on the deck there. They are, it's pretty mild, right? But it's an interesting scene. Tiff, if you can pull back out there. All right, and go to the next one. All of a sudden, we have Miles jumping off the edge. Now, it's not a big character. It's just a tiny little, thing that's happening. But, it helps propel the story. It's a story moment. All of a sudden, Miles is jumping off the edge of that as he's trying to get out of the lab. But it completely changes the look and feel of that story. So that's what we talk about when we talk about story moment. And we have our 3D Viz Dev, which I mentioned earlier. It allows the production to get a good understanding of the scale, the size, and it gives our vendor studio, which in our case, in most cases, is ImageWorks up in Vancouver. It gives them lots of information that we're putting together. So here's, this is actually a pretty detailed one. This was one of our 3D Viz Dev interns who worked with us and became an apprentice with us. And another one of her designs. She's pretty talented. All right, some portfolio tips, and then we'll get to your questions. Tiff, you want to?
Is that? Oh, here we go.
Yep.
I wasn't sure if it was continuing or not. So, portfolio guidelines. Always, always, always put your best work in there. I would rather see less pieces that are all really stellar than 3 really good pieces and 3 that have me questioning your work. So only put your best work. Drawings, paintings, you need to put in your, like I said, the best work. You should have drawings, you should have paintings. We like to see thumbnails because your thought process is all part of your journey. So if you're doing paintings, do some little thumbnail paintings or some little light studies or things like that. Be specific in what you want to do. So often we get portfolios where you've applied for a character designer, but all the work in your portfolio is of a painter. So be really specific in what you're applying for and put only those pieces in your portfolio, or have very different channels in your website to cater to all the different things you want to do. So if you want to be a character designer, have a character designer channel. And if you can do paintings, put a painting channel.
Yep. Some other helpful tips. We recommend that you have a personal website that is just dedicated to your art. A lot of people use Instagram, which is great, and they intermingle it with their personal life. As much as we'd love to know what you are up to over the weekend, we really are focused on the art. So maybe have your fun personal, your life, Instagram or website, and then have one that's devoted just for your art. And the other thing is that people are scrolling all the time. So, make sure that what's out there is what you want people to see. That also holds true for ArtStation or Behance. Or your own personal one. Make sure that it's just what you want people to see what you're looking at. We also recommend that you hashtag your things. So if you have just drawn the most brilliant, character that is holding, a sword and a shield, hashtags, sword and shield, or whatever it is that you've done. So that we can see that, because we search on those, and we're searching all the time, even when we may or may not have a position, just because we're constantly gathering artists that we might be able to use in the future. Make sure you have your contact information on there. This is so important, with your real name. Some of you guys have the most wonderful and creative art names, which is great. But then when we go to find you, we can't find you. So use your real name, and somewhere have an email address or a phone number or some way for us to be able to find you. Because we want to work with you. And if we can't find you, we move on to the next person. We will try, we'll search everywhere. But if we can't find you, it makes it super hard. Keep your resume current. If you're on LinkedIn or you have it somewhere on your website, make sure it's updated so that we can see what you're up to. Put your film credits on there, game, or TV series, what you've worked on, commercials, whatever it is that you've done, so we can get an idea and feel for what you're up to. A word about password protection.
This is a
Make
pet
sure you
peeve.
actually put the password. It's really tough for us, again, if we have to go searching for stuff that is not easily found. And I know that it's important to, if you've got some IP, intellectual property out there that you're nervous about having out there, and sometimes it is appropriate to, to password protect it. But, I guess I would be careful that if you have to password protect it, ask yourself, should it be out there? Is it worth putting your career and your world at risk? So be careful with passwords. And if you do use them, make them easily found. Label your work. If you're a student and you've worked in a group, somebody designed the character, you painted it. It's, just somewhere put on there in your portfolio that it, exactly that, someone designed it, I painted it. Do your homework. My interviews have been so fantastic. I've loved meeting all of you. And some of the best questions have come up from people who have done their homework. Really fantastic ones. So, do a little work, as to who you're talking to, and about the studio. Find out what they're up to, what films are coming up. I do something that I think is great for me. Google has these things called Google Alerts. And you can put in Sony Pictures Animation, and then anytime Sony Pictures Animation is in the news, once you can set it up for once a day or once a week, it comes right to your email box. And that way it's doing the hard work for you. So there are simple ways to get that information out there. Tiff, you want to cover interview tips?
Sure. Is there another slide or?
There is.
Oh, okay. That's good. All right. As Jana was saying, make sure you do your research. You want to know what the company is doing, what they're working on. You also need to research the people you're talking to. So make sure you get their names and you find out where they've worked and what they've worked on. You never know where you're going to have a connection with somebody. And maybe if you look through their profile on LinkedIn, you'll go, oh, they worked at whatever company when my friend worked there. So you'll have some sort of a connection. Make sure you are on time. And you know what? A little early is even better. You don't want to keep your interviewers waiting. Be kind, and if it's in person, use a handshake.
Yay, when we can actually be in person again.
Hopefully, yeah, that would be nice. Otherwise, fist bumps or elbows or whatever is appropriate at the moment, just try and get that connection. Have a story statement, a story about yourself. You have to be able to introduce yourself. So make sure you know what you want to say in advance, and do that for each position. So as your interviewer is talking to you about when you worked on each different show, have a little statement about that experience and give examples of how you were able to deliver your work on time, or how many images you had to do or whatever. When you're doing video interviews, it feels a little bit different for sure, but make sure that you are dressed appropriately from head to toe. There are instances when that doesn't happen, and that's definitely not something you want to do. Make sure your backdrop is reflective of how you want to convey yourself. So don't put yourself in front of something that shouldn't be seen, or maybe doesn't contribute to your story. And then after your interview, make sure you follow up. So follow up with each person, send thank you notes, and all that sort of stuff. Jana, what were we doing with schedule?
Oftentimes you'll get a couple of options for schedule, and pick the one that works best for you. And it's okay to let your recruiter know, or whoever you're talking to, if you've got a class or something else is right in the middle of when they want to talk. Most studios and recruiters will do what they can. We don't want you missing a test or an important work meeting to talk with us. So communicate, let us know what's going on. Okay, internships and apprentices. We open up our internships and apprentices on February 1st. You can check out our website for that. In the past, we weren't able to have any last summer, so we'll see what comes up with this summer. But we are planning. We're acting as if we will have interns. It used to be that it was hard for us for international students or recent grads to bring them over. But now that we've all gotten really comfortable with working from home, I imagine that if the right candidate was brought forth or presented themselves, that we would figure out how to make that work remotely. And we do have artists that work all over the world. And we figured out we've got some really fun things that we do to make sure that people feel connected and that they're connected with their teams, so they feel part of a team and not, kind of off on their own. We also have internships for production, development, marketing, and for college students. Same goes for apprentices. We will post that again on February 1st. It usually only stays up for a short period of time. I highly recommend that you apply early. We look at what comes in first. And if we, find 20 great candidates, early, we do look at everything, but you want to be in that early group. You can look on our website, linkedin.com. You can also follow both Tiffany and I on our LinkedIn. And you can follow Sony Pictures Animation, where all of that gets posted. We'll be looking for painters, environment designers, character designers, and 3D biz dev. All right. So the next one is questions. So I'm going to ask our mates. Thank you. To pull that off. And I am going to do my very best to go over here to Discord and throw out some questions here.
I've pulled up some questions from Discord, so I will ask them directly. So
that makes it easier.
So we had always a lot of questions about remote work and how you hire remote work. How is that going, and what's the next steps after COVID, or you keep hiring remotely?
Yeah, I think that we will. We've always had artists that work all over the world. We've figured out how to make that work, but I think if they're, working, in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a virus is so hard. But if there's anything that's come good out of it, is that we've had to figure out how to make, working from home even better and better for our artists. So I do think that will continue. We have some artists that come on for a few weeks, and then we do have some artists who stay with us for a few years. So we're really able to try and make it work depending upon what we have in production and what phase of production we're in.
Great. What is the most common question you've been asked before in job interviews, and your advice to answer them?
You want to take this one, Tiffany?
I'm thinking. That's a good question. What's the most?
Usually it's what does it take to get a job?
Yeah, and what do you look for in a portfolio? Or sometimes people get really specific and ask, are there images in my portfolio I shouldn't have? Or what do you want to see more of in my portfolio? Those are some of the big questions I get.
Yeah, I would agree. Hopefully we covered a little bit of that for you today.
Yeah, what was the second half of that one?
And how do you answer them? What's the best answer for that?
I don't think there is any one answer. I think it just depends on each individual portfolio and what we're seeing at the time.
Great. We have a grad student will grad from this year. You have any tips for getting foot in the door for storyboarding?
Oh.
Yeah, I would say story can be hard. So I recommend having a few sequences that we can take a look at. The biggest thing we oftentimes see with new story artists is they tend to animate their boards, where it's almost like a 2D animation sequence. And less is more, so that, but make it clear so that we can see what's happening. I prefer animatics. Whether that's in a video or something that I can scroll through, so I can see what's happening. comedy is king. It is really hard to find good comedy board artists. So if you've got something in there that's going to make us laugh, we remember that. You know, I can tell you some that I saw 10 years ago that still make me laugh. So, you know, anything along those lines, I think are pretty good, and really just great storytelling. You know, what are you trying to convey? What's your message?
Great. We have another question from someone who's wants to transition to game to animation. Is there any good stories, any tips?
Yes, I'm going to answer the first one, and then I'm going to let Tiffany do this. As a lot of you know, we've started our next Spider-Verse, and the production designer came from games. So it not only is it possible, it happens. I don't think I can say who it is, but he came from a gaming studio in Los Angeles, and he's production designing the whole film. So yes, it happens.
Good.
And I mean, I came from a background working at Blizzard. I worked for their cinematics group. So it was very much like working in a film studio. And we hired people from animation film all the time. So it goes back and forth for sure, especially in the pre-production areas.
So one small one about portfolio. How much art is bare minimum for a VizDev portfolio in the character design? I think simple one.
Yeah, I would say, gosh, you know, we really only want to see your best work. But I think if you have, I don't know, 5 to 10, maybe, Tiffany?
I was thinking 6 to 10. Yeah.
Yeah. And show a range, you know, show more than just one character. You know, do soft and squishy, do an animal, you know, show hard or comic. Whatever it is, show personality, you know, and make it something that we know we care about, whether we really like them or, you know, they're not so nice. You know, they need to have personality and attitude, but I would say 5 to 10 is bare minimum.
Okay. One that just arrived. Has an environment artist, do you look for people with both 2D and 3D skills?
Yes, it's a good question. It's not that we necessarily look for an environment artist that can do 3D work. It's just that more and more students coming out of school have that ability. And so it helps, but it's not necessary.
Okay. They keep coming. Questions.
I'm glad. Good.
So this is just a quick one. If you do some online courses like Ghana on Game Art Institute, Animation Mentor, etc., should we put it on the resume, LinkedIn, etc.? Should it be mentioned if you do some of those online courses? Absolutely.
Why not?
Yeah.
You're taking classes from people, usually professionals in the industry. So there's that connection again.
It's a very and it's not uncommon for us to reach out to those professors or to those schools and say, hey, we're looking for this. You know, who do you know that might fit this bill? I just did that actually on a position that we were working on for one of our films. I needed something very specific, and I knew this person taught that skill, and they gave me 3 or 4 of their best students.
Great. Now it's one of from myself. A lot of times you've mentioned LinkedIn has a good platform. Do you think artists use it well to the full extent?
They should.
Yeah, I know that they should, but do you think they use it? Because I see a lot of artists don't know how to use it that well. They use other platforms, more visual platforms, and sometimes they leave LinkedIn for last. And I know that you recruiters normally use LinkedIn at first.
It's not that we use it first. It's a tool that we use a lot. There are a lot of art platforms out there. So, you know, and we do look at all of them. You know, we're always searching. But if I'm looking for somebody who, you know, attended, you know, THU 2020 or 2019 in Malta, and I know that, you know, I met them there, and I'll look for them first on LinkedIn. Great.
So I think we don't have any other questions right now out there. Do you have anything else to say? We still have plenty of time.
I don't think so. I think we've covered a lot of ground. I know that there are people out there who hoped that we could meet them. Unfortunately, we have, a limited number of slots. So if you did apply and we didn't get a chance to meet you, it wasn't that we didn't necessarily like your work. It's just that we didn't have an opportunity to meet you. And so in all of our responses, I listed our LinkedIn and our website. We encourage you to keep an eye on that so that we are able to, to find you and connect with you when we do have opportunities.
Great. We have one last question. How do I become more visible on LinkedIn with art reaching out there? It's difficult. It's about LinkedIn again. I think there's some sort of...
I guess we've mentioned it a lot. If you look on LinkedIn, there's a couple things that I think are really helpful. One is, listing the work that you've done. So we're able to find that. There's a place for your portfolio, so we can easily click on that. List your, the best email address to find you. And then there's a couple of other things that you can do. If you've taken those classes, from one of the places that have been mentioned, ask the instructor to write a recommendation for you. There's a little section down there so that we can see that as well. So there are certain ways that you can do that, and connect with us. We're out there. I would say don't necessarily send us emails that way. We get literally hundreds of emails. It's really hard to connect with us directly that way. But if there's an artist that you have found that you've admired, connect with them. 90% of the people in this industry, probably even higher than that, are so generous with their time, and they've all tried to look for that first or second or third or whatever job. They've all sat in that chair. So reach out, connect. They may or may not have a chance, time to look at your portfolio, but those connections count. I guarantee you they will come into play at some point.
Great.
One last I was going to see, Tiffany, did you have anything to add to that? You use LinkedIn a lot as well.
Oh, just make sure all your websites are listed. You can have a Behance, you can have an Instagram, you can have your own personal site. Put them all on there because we'll look at them all.
It's true, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, people I think sometimes think that you don't, but you do, and people go through all the stuff.
Yes, we're looking when you don't think we're looking, because we are.
All day long.
Other question, is it okay to have fun art in your portfolio to show company how you can illustrate their characters, or it's better to show only personal projects?
If it's done well, yeah. Yeah, I think that's totally okay.
What I like is if somebody takes one of our characters and maybe puts a spin on it and makes it their own somehow. I want to look at it and go, oh, wow, that's really cool. We didn't think of that. How is that possible? That would get my attention.
Great. So, any other questions? I think. Thank you so much for this small talk. I think it's really helpful. We're getting really good feedback on Discord right now. Great. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for helping the community.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much to the THU team. You guys are fantastic to work with, and I can't wait to see you all in person. It's gonna be a big hug. That's all I can say is when we're able to actually see each other again. It has been an absolute treat. I got to go to Malta last year, and I look forward to the next one, wherever that may be. If you see us, please don't hesitate to come up and say hello. Again, when we can finally be in person, I can't wait. I promise you, if we have a moment to chat, we will. It's what we do. It's what we love to do. So thank you so much for joining us today, and connect with us on LinkedIn.
For
Tiffany,
sure.
final words?
Just make sure you connect with us and stay in touch. Always keep your portfolio alive and always add to it, because you never know what that one piece we see is going to trigger us to call you and say, hey, what's going on?
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, tribe. Be safe and be well until the next time.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.